Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the Harvest Community Church podcast. This is Pastor Matt, and I am joined today by Brent Lince, long-term member and one of our elders. So, Brent, good to have you with us. We're sitting here early in the renew season, so everybody's creating a personal growth plan. I wondered, have you done anything specifically for the renew season? What is it? Kind of how's it been going so far?
Yeah, so one of the things I've done that's been really cool, I kind of maybe bit off a little bit too much, but so I decided one day a week I was going to fast during lunch and take the hour and walk around our neighborhood and pray for our members.
Very cool.
And so the maybe bit off a little bit too much. I thought, hey, I can go through the whole list like a couple times, and then as I started praying for people, I realized it's like, boy, that would be some really fast praying. And so I'm slowly working my way through that. But it's been really cool just thinking about people and kind of where they're at, what I know about them, people I don't know that much about what's happening.
Yeah.
Praying for them too, you know.
That's awesome.
And so that's been really cool.
If you got through the whole list of members just one time in the season, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
You prayed for everybody in the church. That's really cool.
For sure.
Yeah, one of my things this year, I sort of went public with it at the family gathering, was I'm just praying for an opportunity to share the gospel with an unbeliever, which is harder for me because I'm sort of around all these professing Christians all the time. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. God can fix that. So whatever. I've just been praying. And it's been interesting. We're only a couple weeks in, and I've already had a couple of chances to share the gospel with people, and potentially, hopefully, more coming. One is a member interview that we did with somebody who's a brand new believer, but got to walk through, kind of just walking through Scripture and the Romans Road and clarifying the gospel. So that was fun. And then after that, the very first week of this renew season, I had forgotten I had agreed with Deneen, our preschool director, that I was going to go over and kind of do a little devotional with the kids. She and I arranged that last fall, and I had forgotten to write it on my calendar. So she sends me this reminder email saying, hey, are you still free to do that? And I was like, oh, of course, because I remember doing it. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, an Easter devotional, what am I going to do? And suddenly it hits me. I'm like, duh, I'm praying for opportunities to share the gospel with people. So long story short, I got from our children's ministry a real good preschool-oriented gospel book, and I went down there 2 days in the preschool, and I just got 10 little preschoolers around me and told them about Jesus' death and resurrection. And I'm realizing, like, this is an answer to prayer. I'm getting to share the gospel. And I've got another meeting or two with some people coming up that I think may lead to gospel conversations, so I'm still praying for those as well. So it's kind of fun just to see what God does, when you take a little step of faith.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So this subject, the subject of today's podcast is a new event that we're doing, and we wanted to do a quick podcast on it to give everybody a sense of what it is and where it's coming from. The event is called Invite Our Neighbors, which I realized has the acronym ION, which sounds really science nerdy and was totally accidental, and I don't know. I probably just totally ruined the event. But anyway, we'll throw that out there. Invite Our Neighbors, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the event in particular, but I wanted to talk with you, Brent, a little bit about where the idea for the event came from, because this whole season, this whole renew season, we're really focusing on how to be disciple makers as a church, and that's not a new focus for us. We've been doing that for a couple of years. And one of the things in all the processes that our elders were involved in, you were a part of that, is we were working through what does it look like to be a disciple-making church, and how do we engage with unbelievers and then evangelize and share the gospel and then kind of establish and equip people as we train them up. And so that's a whole process, and it starts with that whole engage thing. And we talked quite a bit about that. So could you talk for a second about what does it mean to engage with unbelievers?
Yeah, so one of the things when we were going through that process that was super helpful for me was kind of realizing that there's sort of a two-step thing on that, how we work with people that aren't yet followers of Jesus. And so obviously they need to hear the gospel and have those opportunities like you were talking about that you've been able to do. But if you step back before that, what they really need is they need a Christian to come alongside them, a loving Christian, have a relationship there. And in my mind, when we were kind of working through that, it was kind of like, oh, it seems so obvious. And it's kind of obvious when you say it. But I think where it's helpful is that, at least for me, I think a lot of times I kind of put undue pressure on myself that if I'm going to talk to somebody I don't know, I got to be ready and hit them with the gospel, right that very first time. Mm-hmm. And I think what this does is it helps me just to kind of see, hey, there's stuff that needs to happen before that. And to focus on that, trying to do that well, and just coming alongside them. And then, one of the things that was helpful, and I think this actually went back to some of the stuff we did even a few years back, talking about evangelism stuff. And there was a kind of a breakdown of even that engage kind of before you share the gospel kind of thing. And you shared this with me. It was super helpful. And kind of a see people, number one. Number two, pray for people. And then number three, connect with them, try to get to know them personally. And then really out of that relationship and that context, of course, we're hoping and praying for opportunities like you are this Renew season to be able to, share the gospel with people. Mm-hmm. So I think just kind of really realizing there's this pre-evangelism thing that we need to get better at. Mm-hmm. And as a church, just thinking how we can do that, how we can encourage all of us to do that. And also thinking about all of our neighbors that have sprung up around us here in the last, many years that we've been here as a church.
So one of the things I was thinking about along that line is the history of this church. It was started and the property was acquired and the building was put here from the very beginning. And at the time, there was very little immediately around us. It was mostly just fields, but everybody knew because of urban planning that there was all sorts of residential growth that was going to happen. And so the whole idea and the reason, as I understand it, Harvest got its name was, hey, there's a harvest field, right? We need to have a faithful gospel witness church in this area that's going to grow so much over the next few decades. Well, here we are 3.5 decades later, and lo and behold, it's grown. We've got housing all around us. And I mean, just thousands and thousands of families that live within just a 1 mile radius of our church, way more so than there used to be. So when we talk about engaging, to me, it's just sort of like living up to our name. We're just trying to be the gospel witness, that we think God put us here. And I loved one of the quotes from a book that we were using at that time that I think we all referred to, and it really hit us all, not because it's really super insightful, it's just because it's so obvious, but it was good. And the quote was this: "It's very hard to evangelize the thousands of people living all around us if we don't know them or have any contact with them." Mm-hmm. That was so obvious. I just got that. Yes, the goal is to be able to share the gospel with people, but how do you share the gospel with somebody you've never talked to? So engaging helps us think about how we start conversations, start relationships, and then eventually get that to the place, Lord willing, where we do have opportunities to share the gospel. So they're very closely connected, but they're not the same thing. We want to engage. So that leads me to the event then. So we got this new event that's new for Harvest this year, Saturday, April 1st. We're calling it Invite Our Neighbors, not your neighbors as an individual Christian, but our neighbors, the people.
Which we want to do that too.
Absolutely.
That's not
Absolutely.
This event.
Good clarification. Thank you. We're not at all opposed to that. But this event is focused on how we as a church can invite our church's neighbors, the people that live right around our church property, to Easter services on Sunday morning. So that'll be Saturday morning, April 1st. And you're working with what we call our Engage team. It's a group of people that are just helping us kind of think through how as a church we can reach out. And that's the team that came up with this event. So can you tell us, like, if I'm going to show up that Saturday morning, what could I expect? What am I going to be asked to do?
Yeah, so we're still working on some of the details, but 10 o'clock here at the church, we're going to gather. And what we're going to do is we're going to create some door hangers, just, little things with a hole on it that you slip over the doorknob of a house. And so those are going to, part of that, so it's going to have, basically say like, hey, neighbor, we're Harvest Church, we're here for you. I'm kind of paraphrasing. I won't say that exactly, but and then it's going to basically invite them to our Easter service and say, hey, we've got a VBS, several things we're going to put on there, just ways they can, connect with us. So what we're going to do is we're going to have people go out, probably at least like in groups of 2 or whatever. And we've kind of mapped out all the areas around the church here. And so we're going to say, hey, go over to this area, you 2 people and just and literally just go, door to door. Just, we're not going to knock on the doors or anything like that. We're just going to put the door hanger on there. If we bump into somebody, we're just gonna we'll think through and kind of coach people when they come. But something along the lines of, "Hey, we're from Harvest Community Church, just down the road there, and we're just making the rounds through the neighborhoods, inviting people to join with us. We've got an Easter service coming up, so it'll be a week and a day before Easter, and so give them enough time to. It won't just be the day before, and So that's what we're going to do is have people go put the door hangers on the doors. The other thing we want to do is to have people that will just come and pray. And in my mind, I think it'd be really cool to have those folks actually go into sort of, depending on how many people we have doing that versus the door hangers, to just go into the neighborhoods and just pray. Maybe you're with somebody else. You can just pray out loud like you're having a conversation, but having a conversation with the Lord.
Yeah.
And praying for our neighbors and just that God would, put it on the hearts of, those that he wants to come and that they would see the door hangers and respond. So that's kind of the two things we're going to be doing. Okay. The other thing I'll mention is on the door hanger, we're going to put a QR code that links to a special kind of harvestcc.org/neighbor webpage.
Yeah.
And you're going to do a little welcome video on there, a little 30-second thing, just specifically targeted to people right around here.
Yeah.
Right around
That's
church. Great. And then it'll also on the actual web page, it'll have, links off to the different events so they can get more information. We'll also have something on there, need prayer, you can put a prayer request on there, those that come to that webpage.
Yeah. So sounds just a lot of ways to try to leverage the technology to say, we're
here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me think about a lot of people around here drive by this building all the time. And, it's just, I don't know, I drive by lots of churches. It's just a building, right? But just an opportunity to kind of say, hey, we're real people and we see you and we care. And if they're not interested, they're not interested. But at least we've kind of broken that ice with them. Sounds like that's kind of the idea.
Exactly.
So if I show up that Saturday morning, April 1st at 10 o'clock, I'm going to basically be able to, sounds like kind of choose sort of one of two activities. I'm either going to go around and help deliver and hang these door hangers. And if there's people around, I can say hi. Or I can either here in the building or out in the neighborhoods really just be focused on prayer. So there's a couple of different options there.
Yeah, and I think Karen, my wife, is going to probably head up that prayer thing, and so having some specific things we want to pray through. And,
great.
And some thought going into that ahead of time. So if you want to do that, that'd be super awesome too. That's obviously a really important part of the whole process is asking the Lord to just move in people's hearts.
And absolutely.
So
could be a really good thing too. We have a families event later on that afternoon from 11 to 4, our Journey to the Cross event, where parents can bring their kids and kind of walk them through the Easter story. So that's the kind of thing that families could actually come and even with their kids help invite neighbors or pray and then sign up for the Journey to the Cross, and that kind of thing. So there's some pretty cool things going on. So, okay, well, let's kind of then turn the corner and say that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, and that's what we're doing. So maybe my last question is, many folks these days, especially here in the very independent, isolated Pacific Northwest, stay out of my personal space culture that we have, are pretty intimidated by the thought of like walking into a neighborhood and just kind of hanging stuff on somebody's door, talking to strangers. In my experience at my house in Southwest Beaverton, the only people I don't know who ring my doorbell are selling something, and I'm not really interested in that, And so could you what would be a response if somebody says, I mean, that sounds good, but that brings up huge anxiety. I think I would just rather not. What are some thoughts to maybe kind of help us think through that?
Yeah, well, a couple thoughts. I mean, you can come and pray. That's a little further away, but super important thing that we need to be doing. The other thing is, we're not going to knock on doors. Yeah. So we're not going to knock on doors and, hey, everybody take a little pamphlet and hand it to them, something like that. That said, I think, we are trying to connect with people. So if we see people out and about and, hey, what are you guys doing? And, I think just, and we'll
we're not actually selling cable TV service. We're just in the church there. And we're just saying hi to our neighbors.
We're inviting you to our church. We're, like you said before, I love that, there's this building here and there's real people, we're real people that care about other people. So we're not knocking on doors and just sort of trying to cold, share the gospel or any kind of thing like that. We're just going to go through, put the door hangers on, do the praying, and that's pretty much it. I think. Good. So did I answer your question?
I think so. Okay. And I think the other thought would be, that to me, I guess that helps me say, okay, that sounds less intimidating than like cold turkey evangelism with a total stranger. Yeah. Not that we're opposed. If a spiritual conversation comes up, share the gospel. But as you said, that's not the goal. So that feels a little maybe less threatening, but it's still a little uncomfortable. I mean, is the goal to sort of make this to sort of remove all discomfort? I mean, can you help me there?
Yeah.
If I'm still like,
Yeah.
that sounds a lot less threatening, but I still don't really know.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah.
How would you
Well,
encourage me?
I think get over it. I mean, I'm speaking
Thank
to
you.
myself.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir here too, because I mean, I'm classic introvert. This isn't, this isn't like, hey, I do this stuff all the time, and so I really am just speaking to myself here as well. That I think getting a little bit of our comfort zones, is good. It can be healthy. I think the other thing for me is when I think about, and I'm thinking about in Acts, there's a can't remember. I think it's Acts 19. The Lord tells Paul to stay. I think it was in Ephesus. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But he says, so what he tells him is, I have many people in this city.
Yeah.
So keep at it.
Yeah.
Keep the work going. And I can't remember if he had been seeing some opposition and stuff,
Yep.
but God was encouraging. I have many people.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that around here, I think, it's like God has people out here in our neighborhoods, in your neighborhood at home too, that he's called. And, we could be the hands and feet that sort of initiate that contact and help them to take that next step in their journey. I think the other thing too is just to be honest about it and realize there's going to be people that aren't happy about it. They're going to see that thing and throw it in the garbage or whatever. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not up, with a megaphone, blasting
Right.
people, in their face and that kind of thing. So to be okay with that, but we don't know what God's going to do with this.
Yeah.
So we're trusting Him that He'll lead us to the right people, and they'll see it and scan the QR code and go to our website and come and join us for Easter or one of the other events.
That's good.
So.
Yeah, I think for myself personally, I'm in a similar boat. Like, just in my personal comfort zone level, like, I don't necessarily want to go do this on a Saturday, but I'm going to be there, and for several reasons. Part of it is that's kind of the spirit of this whole Renew season, is like, what would it look like to take one step outside of our comfort zones? We don't need to leap 10 steps at once, but how could I do one step of stretching myself to grow? And so maybe for many of us, this is that kind of step.
Yeah.
And I think also of the evangelism podcast we just did recently with our friend Travis, who by gifting would say he has a gift of evangelism, but he talked really honestly about the fact that evangelism is still really hard for him. Like, that doesn't make the stress go away. He says, I get all in knots every time I start a conversation with somebody, but I just do it to be obedient to Jesus. And I thought, what a great lesson. I think we can convince ourselves that if I had a different personality or a different gifting set, this wouldn't be that hard. But on the other hand, it's just kind of like, I don't know, it always takes a little effort to make a connection with a new person, but it's worth doing. So
yeah, there's another thing I would add to that is I think, we purposely want to go do this in at least with one other person in a group, and it's not, hey, we're just sending you out, one by one. I mean, it's interesting, when Jesus sent his disciples out, he sent them out 2 by 2, right? And so, this is going to be a group activity, and so I think to me that makes it a little bit less daunting. I've got somebody there, a fellow harvester. We're going to go out and do this together.
Yeah. So we plan to have a sign up, and if you do sign up, great, come. If you don't, you just show up. That's fine too.
Yep.
Saturday, April 1st, 10 o'clock. We'll be there. Thanks, Brent, for coming and just kind of talking about the heart behind this.
Sure.
And
pleasure.
Church, let's just kind of be there and see what God will do with it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Go team, let's go.
Thanks for listening.